Hi, everyone, and welcome to our meeting today. My name is Sarah Feingold, and I'm a co-founder of The Fourth Floor. The Fourth Floor is a female-focused entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we help professionals get board seats, and we help startups build out their boards. By connecting these two groups of highly motivated people, magic happens, and careers and companies scale. And today we're going to be chatting with the wonderful Emily Green of Ellevest, and she's going to teach us about financial markets. I'm very excited. This is part of our series of The Upside. And these are conversations about how a major crisis can reorder society and how we as a community can harness and use this information and what is happening to promote the better. So without further ado, I would love Emily to take over. Thank you for joining us, Emily.
Yes, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here in my living room, as always.
Your living room looks great.
Yeah, but very excited to be here. I know that we have, a lot of anxiety on our minds today about our health and such, but also, as we watch the financial markets and everything going on, it's obviously top of mind as well. So just a little background on me. I am an advisor at Ellevest. As the first advisor, I started our private wealth business there 2.5 years ago. So I work for a woman named Sally Krawcheck, who many of you may have seen speak at things. She speaks at just about every women's group that exists on the planet. And we were started as a firm to help close the gender investment gap. So to get women invested. We've expanded much more today into banking and things, but that was the crux of what we were trying to do, is get more money in the hands of women. And so these are very important conversations. And I'd say that, as we sit here in a group of women, there's always that thought that women don't know as much about investing as men. But if you actually look into it, it's that men pretend to know what they're doing, where we as women find the need to know everything when we're making moves. So just, to kind of set the playing field and start from the beginning of thinking about the financial markets and where we are today. While we have not been in a situation in our lifetime where we've had a pandemic like this, we've seen the markets go down before. So there have been, economic there have been ways that the economy's been hurt many times before this. We saw this in 2007, 2008. We saw this in 2001 with the tech bubble. We saw this in the 80s. This isn't the first time that this has happened, and we will be okay. That's a lot of people are like, is all my money going to be gone? Is every company going to go bankrupt? We will be okay. It's just a kind of level set there, but we are in a recession at this point. And so that just means that our, the growth of our economy is, is contracting now. So we're actually, as we see all these businesses and things that can't open, we are fully in a recession, which we just haven't been in a long time. So since the financial crisis in 2008, we haven't seen that. So first, it's kind of hard for us to feel because it's been a long time since, and as much as things have actually been pretty good for a long time, and thinking about that. So we went to that, but also we went into a recession so quickly. So for context of why this feels so monumental, in 2008, it took months for this all to happen. And even though when we look back, it kind of feels like, I don't know, Bear Stearns failed, then we saw AAG, and it feels like it was all very close together, but it really took a lot of months for this all to happen. Where in, the current COVID-19 crisis, it all happened within a couple of weeks that we saw this happen. And so it just felt all a lot very scary, a lot of unknowns out there in terms of thinking about this. So this is the fastest bull. So those are good markets to bear, which we are now bad markets in history. So since markets have existed, this is the fastest. And then we saw extreme ups and downs. So volatility in the market, huge ups and downs. So there were days that the stock market was up 7%, and the days it was down 7%, which is insane. That's not a normal type of thing that you see. So we saw the quickest down, but then we also were seeing like the quickest 1-day gain. So there was just a lot of unknowns out there that we're thinking about. And so a couple of things to remember is we always talk about the market, and the market is, in to the media and such, the market is stocks. So when we're looking at it, we're just looking at what stocks are doing. But there's a lot more investments that exist in the world than stocks. Stocks is your ownership in a company, and they're just tend to be much more volatile. They're definitely going to be where you get return over the long term, but in times like this, and you're going to see a lot more ups and downs in this. But there are other things that we're looking at, like bonds, which just to also set a level playing field is in simple terms. I always think about it in terms of like myself here in New York City. If the subway system, the MTA needs money to fix it, as they always do, and they don't have enough, which they never do, they need to raise money. So they basically issue they ask for a loan. So you're actually lending the city of New York money. In order to do that, they pay you interest, just like you would pay interest on your mortgage. And so they're pretty relatively safe types of investments. Hopefully the city of New York or LA or any of these places do not go bankrupt. And it's even with what's going on, we don't think that will happen. But just in context, that there's all these different types of investments that we can see out there. So when we're thinking about, where we're at right now, we've come down very quickly. So we were here and we came down very sharply. And so a lot of it's, okay, what is this recovery going to look like? And on average, recoveries aren't as long as you would think they are. It depends on the type of crisis we're in and such. And actually, you've had times where it's a year, you've had times where it's 7 years, but on average, it's been about 4 years in order to fully correct. But you've probably heard a lot about like the V shape, U shape, W shape, L shape, like like just about every letter of the alphabet. Someone at a bank has decided that that's how the recovery is going to look. And a V shape just means we'd recover very quickly. So we'd hit the bottom, we'd find a vaccine, then we'd go on to start to open businesses. Like I was actually reading a report from a large financial institution that they think that mid-May, they'll start to relax social distancing in a lot of states, actually even in New York by the end of May. There are certain states that are the ones that are all open now, but that are shouldn't open until July. But so you look at, July's not that far away and if we really look at it. So when we think about that, the V shape is that we kind of hit the bottom and then businesses open, we kind of all go back to spending and such, and we quickly recover. I think what we've seen more likely lately is the U shape, that we've kind of like come down quickly, we stay down for a little and then come back up very quickly, but we have a little bit longer time of that. We've heard about the W shape, that is when it comes back in the fall is what that means. Then every business has to close again and then we reopen. And then there's the very pessimistic L shape, which means we just like never recover, which is just not a reality. I don't know about you guys, but I sit at home and just can't wait till I can like go eat at a restaurant or spend money or do anything at this point. Just get out there and travel. Our CEO and I, we used to fly a lot. We were joking. I'm like, I will never say no to an airplane again. Like you asked me to take a red eye to California, I am there. So we're thinking about that. So I think a lot of people are ready to go out, but I think people will be safer. It's going to take a while to think about this. So, those are the types of recoveries that we're looking at and thinking about that. But, when I think back to history and how this is, it's very, we can think about the past as, oh my God, in 2008, like the regulators and everyone, like they came in and they knew what they were doing and they figured it out. But in reality, like they didn't know what they were doing either at that time. Like our government is sitting there figuring it out now, but in 2008, it feels like, oh, we had that under control now and we got it. But they were doing the same kind of thing that we're thinking about today. And so, my CEO was actually, she was CFO of bank at the time. She was like, Emily, I sat in that room and I will tell you, like, we were sitting there like, I don't know if this is going to be saved. Like the banks may go down. And they didn't, but we're thinking about that. And we see this game that the market plays with the government right now. And so if you think about it, would the government actually have come in with these huge stimulus bills that they've put in if the market did not react so sharply? Probably not. So it's almost like a conversation that the market is having with the government saying, all right, when they first put the first stimulus bill through, the market didn't react that much. It still didn't like it. And so the market is telling the government, you have to do more. This isn't going to save us. Like you have to do more. And so as we see the markets going up and down, it's a conversation between the government and the markets of what do we need to do here in order to make sure that these companies are all stabilized while we're all staying home. So when we're thinking about this, it's very important that we're doing that. We see these huge numbers, 26 million people are unemployed. That's huge, huge, huge. But the government has come in really an unprecedented way, frankly, to just basically say they are willing to do anything they can to prop up businesses in the market and such. And no, they have not done it perfectly, but I think we're going to continue to see they will iterate on it and they will figure out a way to actually, I know a lot of their policies right now are not great for restaurant owners and such, but they will figure out ways to actually to get to that. And then the biggest issues that we've probably seen in headlines over the past week is the oil issue that you've probably seen coming across your alerts and such is, and people are like, okay, what's going on with oil in this? And so at the beginning of COVID-19, we saw oil kind of come in with Saudi Arabia and Russia kind of fighting with each other about it. But now we're actually at an issue, and this is just crazy, that there's no room to store the oil that's been produced. So we have all this oil and there's no like tankers to keep in it. And so it actually got to the point last week that you had to pay people. So like people like me would go buy like an oil contract for someone. And basically when you do that, you're saying you're going to take the oil eventually, but in practice, you always sell it before then because, you're not actually going to take that oil. But what happened is that because there's nowhere to store this, you were actually paying people. So it was negative. You were paying people to take investments from you, which is just insane when you're thinking about it. So we're not driving, we're not getting in airplanes. Like we're not using it. So this isn't unprecedented though. Like actually in Europe, they've had negative interest rates for a long time now, since the crisis. And which basically means actually if you save money to bank, you're actually paying them to save money, which is just scary and crazy and just, an interesting way to think about it. But that, that's kind of where we're at today with the oil situation. And the market actually has been fine with this. But the other thing I just I'd mentioned bonds, when we first started, but I wanted to mention when we're thinking about this, the importance of that there are other types of investments than stocks. It's just that all the stocks are the sexy thing. It's what's in the news when they're up and down. That's what we want to talk about. But if you have a plan and a diversified account, as most investment advisors would have you, and you probably own other things like bonds. And a month ago, you actually probably saw those go down too, because everyone was just kind of panic selling everything. A month ago, we really were in a worse place. We didn't know what was going on. It was very scary. But now, we kind of we've seen the government's going to come in. We will recover from this. We've kind of figured out a lot more about COVID-19 than we knew a month ago, although, until we have a vaccine, it's still going to be a bumpy ride. But when we're thinking about it, bonds are not going to move as up and down, and those tend to be the safer place. So when we look at all the headlines, they tend to be about stocks, but it's not as scary if you own all these different types of investments. So when you're thinking about your plan and such, it's just making sure that you do own these things and thinking about that. But at the same time, it's important to stocks are what are being hurt right now, and it is important to focus on that. And we get a lot of questions at Ellevest, so we actually started something that we have decided to answer every single question that someone sends to us. And we have the largest social following of any financial in the firm in the world. So it's a lot of questions. People like don't sleep. I don't know why they decided to do this, but I see a lot of times people writing in, should I buy a stock or should I buy a mutual fund or an ETF? And we'll talk more about this next week, but I did just want to mention that, stocks are also mutual funds and ETFs when you're thinking about it. Stocks are what are in the market. So even if you own Apple stock is in the market when you're thinking about it. So an ETF is just, or a mutual fund is just taking all of these things and putting them in together. So a lot of times I get so many phone calls of people saying, should I buy Zoom stock? Should I buy Amazon stock? Should I buy Peloton stock? Like I was joking, like if I had $1 for every time someone called me that they should buy Peloton stock over the past couple of weeks, I'd be like very rich. But those are stocks, and it's, you're still taking the risk of a company buying in, but those are also going to have market risks to them. Like, even as people, are investing in such, there's risks to those as well. Like, I mean, we've seen all the issues that Zoom's had and things. So, just being smart about how you're thinking about that. I can share so much more about like specifics on the markets, but I'll pause just to see questions, certain topics you guys want to dig deeper into, anything.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the overview, Emily. If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and then we can call on you. I already have a question in a queue from someone who wants to remain anonymous. What are some thoughts on investing in real estate in the coming months?
Yeah. So I think it's going to depend. Again, so number one, if you're investing in real estate, you have to remember first and foremost that real estate is illiquid. So if you invest in it, you need to make sure that you have a long-term time horizon on doing that. And that doesn't matter if it's today or if it was a year ago when the world looked in a much different place. It is illiquid. So if you needed to sell it tomorrow, you could not probably do that. Whereas if you needed to sell stock tomorrow, you could do it. So, first and foremost, making sure that you have enough liquidity, so liquid investments and such, in order to do that. So that's a rule of thumb, no matter when. Then I think, when you're investing, if you're a professional real estate investor or, you've done well with doing investment properties and things like that, that's different. I think that, especially living here in New York, everyone kind of thinks they're like a real estate connoisseur because they bought an apartment 10 years ago and now everything in New York is been gone up. But it's actually interesting. If you actually look at physical real estate, not like traded funds and things on it, but physical real estate over time, if you actually sat down and looked at and I'm not just like in general, not just Manhattan real estate is obviously done insane, but if you looked at in general of investment properties across the United States, and you looked at that of what they've done over history, they've actually, it's like a couple percent if you look at it over time. So if you in reality looked at that and said, hey, I want you to buy a stock and you're going to get like 3% over time and you can't sell it for 10 years, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a horrible investment. But there's something about real estate that is sexier and such. But that being said, real estate, we do real estate investing for our clients because there is a diversification factor. So right now, it depends what kind you have, but some of it is going to hold up. And so if you have the ability to do it and you already invested in other things, I think it's a great time to look at that. But you have to remember that it's a piece of your puzzle. It's not, just real estate investing or such. And so thinking about that, also being careful just about where you are in such, if you're renting to certain people, and there's been a lot with, can you collect rents? You can't evict people right now. There's all these certain things that can kind of come in place if you're doing it. So just being super careful about how you're thinking about that.
Thanks. I mean, it just feels like there's something tangible about owning real estate. Like you can touch it, like literally.
Yeah.
But I definitely understand what you're saying about the different ways to look at it. So we have a couple more questions in the queue. Do you see the markets being more receptive to those companies that have opted to repatriate their supply chains back to the US?
Um, so I think the market in general has, with what's gone on, I don't think there's a lot of logic, frankly, in what has happened with certain companies. There's certain things like energy that have been killed over the last 12 months. But if you actually look at the industries that have done best over the past month, I think it was as of Friday, it was obviously tech and then the energy sector. But you'd think, when you think about it, you'd be like, energy, like you see all these horrible headlines about energy and oil and such. And so it's not what you would think. So I think there's not a lot of logic, frankly, of what is going on. And, when you think about bringing supply chains back to the US, I don't know if it's frankly going to be like safer to be here. There's actually a lot of, like China, obviously how they handled it and they were the first place. But if there was actually, I was reading another economist writing about how some of these other countries have handled it in smaller places, but in Asia where a lot of this would come from, and actually how they've done it has actually been a lot more positive for this. So we haven't seen the market really reacting to things like that yet. We've seen reacting to some different things that exist within that we could talk more about. But for now, I think it's been like sell. There's no been like, oh, let's look into this. It's a lot of sell and think later right now type of thing.
Thanks. I have more questions. Do you have any thoughts on college debt or how the states and colleges will be approaching financial aid?
Yeah. So this is important. So debt is also, like, before you invest, debt is a very important thing that you should be looking at. Like, should I be investing before paying off my loans? So number one, kind of like the rule of thumb is if you have debt over 5%, you should be focusing on paying that off before you start investing and such. So you should really look to take that down. Hopefully it's below that now with how rates have become. But I think that there has been a lot of rumors out there of like, I have a client who has plenty of money to pay off her student debt, but she's like, I really think like the country is going to, just do forgiveness on this and such, which is almost kind of annoying because she's definitely enough money to just pay it off off in this. But when you're thinking about it, I think, I frankly don't think that that's what they're going to step in with right now. That's my personal opinion. I think they're going to try to focus there's the deficit that is about to exist in our country is going to be enormous. And I think before we see them focusing on that, we're going to see much more on focusing on, they kind of got the first part of like PPP and the CARES Act and all out. But I think, I was reading something like Tom Colicchio, who's a famous chef, has been working with them a lot on kind of doing like 2.0 for restaurants. I think we're going to see a lot more because frankly, the PPP is meant for smaller companies. Yes, some larger companies have gotten it, but a lot of these large companies are going to need bailouts too. And so we're looking at that. I think they'll focus on that for now. And unfortunately, I feel like this could end up being forgotten kind of in the same way that it seems to always be.
Thank you. Just wondering with your clients if you're seeing any specific trends in the way that they're thinking about investing that you think is positive.
So this is my favorite thing actually, and I find this so interesting. So not only in this downturn, but when the markets have pulled back for the past couple of years, what we've seen, and we have at Ellevest, we have a high net worth business, but we also have a digital business, which has no minimum. And so you'd think that people where it's their first $10 they're investing would actually be more reactive. But what we've seen over time is that our clientele are mostly women, and that our clients have actually reacted a lot less. So what we've seen is women tend to be very long-term thinking in their investing. And so they're actually better investors over time. And so since they're not selling or reacting to the market, they will actually be better over the long term if they continue on that. So that's, I think, been one really interesting thing and very smart and exciting that we see from our clients is really, we've been focusing on making sure they're thinking long term, and we've really seen that that's what they've been doing.
That's great. That shows that your education is really sticking.
And that women are just so smart.
Obviously. I mean, I already knew that because I'm smart. Okay, so I have a couple more questions, but if other people have questions, you can either privately message me or you can raise your hand. I'm happy to put you on camera. So could you talk about investing for impact funds?
Yes. This is my favorite topic too.
Oh, favorite topics, Emily. Let's get them all.
So I am completely obsessed with investing with impact. And number one, I think that what we're going through right now may be part of the force that actually gets this to be more mainstream. The Wall Street in general has really been hesitant to do impact investing, and that just means investing for good. Although I always say you're always investing with an impact. It's just, are you making a positive or negative one? So when you're thinking, I think that people have seen that you want to be with companies that are doing the right thing, and people are getting called out for not doing the right thing at this point. So number one, we've seen a lot of that. But so in investing with an impact, we see in all different ways. So you can actually do it within the stock market by, what we do at Ellevest is we put on like screens. So we define it as actually gender lens investing, but gender lens investing actually means almost everything, because it means women are disproportionately affected by climate change, gun violence, human rights violations, just about everything. So when you're looking at all this, so we try to look at it in terms of that. And then you're thinking about how are these companies performing in line with certain criteria. So if you have a percentage of women on your board, or a percentage of, are you selling guns? Are you doing all these types of things, and all of that? And you can actually get the data to filter out all of that. And so I think people are going to care more and more about that. And I think it's more important than ever that we're thinking about this, because we are in a crisis that is, it's an environmental crisis that we're looking at this. And I think that we all need to be thinking and making sure that our money is flowing into these types of investments. And they've actually done better than ESG, which is environmentally, social, and good governance type of companies. They've actually done better over time. There's been a lot of articles in the past couple of weeks about how interesting it is that within the markets going up and down, these are the companies that have performed. So I would encourage everyone, what I've been telling a lot of people is, like, this is a time to not only reflect on your investment plan, but also think about the impact that you're making, not just your investments, but what you purchase and everything in your life. And I think it's more important than ever that we're thinking about that.
So here's another question. What about racial lens investing?
Yeah. So that's, we do a lot of these types of things. So we've done, I built LGBTQIA portfolios for people, or we focus on LGBTQIA issues. And so what we try to look at is, so on our digital side, it's a little bit harder because you have to use ETFs and mutual funds, and those so need to exist, and you need to make sure that you're diversified and doing that. And so if someone has $10, it's really hard to buy 300 companies and make them diversified, because each stock costs a certain amount of money. But at certain thresholds, you can be very specific about the impact that you're making, like a racial lens investing strategy. And so when you think about, again, the things that disproportionately affect, people of color, when you think about it, and you can put together those issues. And again, it's a lot of the same issues, frankly, that affect women. It's also affecting people of color when you're looking at it, but you can actually pull in a lot of that data and make sure that you're investing in a way that actually supports people of color and looking at that when you're investing. And it's actually kind of cool. You can actually kind of track and how you're performing versus that. If you're actually very smart about it, you can actually see like how many more women on the board actually are there, how many more people of color do they actually, how many people, like, are they actually diverse within this? And so that's also important. Another important part about gender lens and racial lens investing is that it has been found that if you have a diverse board and a diverse team, you will perform better as a company. And for some reason, there's like 3,000 studies about this, like McKinsey, who everyone believes is a like amazing source of information, and somehow companies still, it's like we have to like put quotas on them to actually hire or put diversity on their board. But I truly think that your portfolio will do better over time if you have some diversity within even the types of people that you're investing in.
Why aren't people listening to the data?
I get asked this all the time. My theory is because 86% of financial advisors are white men, so they don't care, and white men over the age of 50. So why would you care to change anything? And then I think if you just look at the individual company to company level, what I get afraid of in times like this is actually diversity will go backwards, because in times like this, you look to the people you know. And so after you look at something like this, if you need to hire a new CEO, you need to hire your COO, you need to hire someone on your board, you're going to be like, you know what? I was really all about diversity, but now like my friend Joe, I know he's good. I can't take any risks right now. I'll hire him. And that's something that I really fear. And we saw that in Wall Street after the financial crisis. So diversity has gone down in the financial industry since 2008. So there's actually more white men who are like running banks and such in now than there were in 2008. So when we think about that, it's more important to think about that. But I think it's frankly, we always joke it's Todd. So Todd is the nice guy. He has 2 daughters. He says, like, I'm all about this diversity thing. And, that sounds great. But then, then Todd promotes John, and Todd promotes Rob, and Todd promotes Matthew. And then you're just sitting there and, you're like, it's the nice guy that kills you at the end of the day. And so it's, making sure it's getting across to people like that. And it's just unfortunate that that's what people do. They hire people who look like them. So I think we need to change how companies think about that, but that's a issue to tackle.
Yeah, and it's an issue that we at the fourth floor think very passionately about, because we know all the data, and we're just trying to help these smaller companies scale,
Yep.
putting women on their boards earlier, so that they're going to do better, and then everyone will do better. Thinking about this with so many people losing their jobs, now there are more unemployed white men, so those will probably be getting more jobs as well. Is that sort of what you're also saying?
Yeah, women actually have been disproportionately affected by this. So if you think about who are a lot of the workers, so if we're looking back to the gender lens, racial lens investing, who has been disproportionately affected? Because these are the people with who are the healthcare workers who are working, like it's actually the women and people of color. So they've been disproportionately affected by this. I think we're going to come back and see that that's going to continue to happen. I think we're all going to have to push even harder than we were before to make sure that that's not where we end up after this, and thinking about that. And we actually do support other women, and we are very specific about that when we're thinking about it, how we're spending and investing, and the time we're spending with people.
Yeah, that's really important. A couple more questions. What resources do you use to keep track of day-to-day market trends?
So, and I have tools that are not like available to everyone. And thinking about
Emily tools.
Yeah, if you want, if you want to like get a Bloomberg and things, but there are some things that are out there. We always joke that actually like CNBC is where like good investing goes to die, because like everyone just it's all like reactionary type of things, and actually being reactionary is not the smartest way to invest. So you want to find places that have long-term type of approaches. I read a lot of the major economists and such. I actually think if you actually read pieces from economists right now, you'd be like, all right, the world isn't so bad. It's funny how like different their view is actually from the news. So it's a lot of, the major banks all have economists that I think have written some very good pieces in this time. And frankly, even if you like go on their LinkedIn and follow them, you can see a lot of them. They'll post them a lot there. There are like the CNBCs and such, but I think that, looking at all that and, what I'd also say is that the part of the problem in this industry in general is that the money media is very male centric in general. And so there really is not a lot of the way to, speaking to women in this. So we put out a ton of content. I actually just don't even know how they do it, but we do a lot of that. And then a lot of it is just, I spend a lot of time on just like other people's calls and economists and all these sorts of things and thinking about that. But it's definitely not, I'd say that following the markets day to day is like a full-time job. I don't want anyone ever think they have to do that.
I'm glad you're doing it for us. Do you have any general thoughts or sentiments on the consumer packaged goods personal care market in the next 6 months?
So, because we're all not putting on makeup and things.
I mean, some of us aren't even wearing anything but sweatpants, not talking for anyone.
Although Sephora just did to have their sale and I did order like everything. I think what we're going to see within this is there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers. There's going to be winners that we expected and owners that we did not. I do think that when we come out of this, we're all going to be excited to do these types of things. Like I know all I want to do is like schedule my haircut and my color, and I like cannot wait to get a manicure and pedicure and like all those types of things. And like, when can I schedule all of these? So I think we will go back to normal. I was actually reading an article about in Georgia, there was a hair salon that was opening and all the precautions. And I will be interested to see, since they're still increasing in numbers, like if they actually get people to go into those types of places at this time, frankly. But I think that if we're smart about it and such, I don't see any reason that we're not going to go back to that. And I actually think that some people have been ordering some of these types of things at home just to be like, oh, let me try out. Like I have tons of friends who are like, oh, let me see how I can get my own manicures and such. So I wouldn't ever write off of an industry because things will bounce back even if we're not using them in this very moment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm pretty sure everyone here would give anything just to have to relax with a manicure or just something to feel like not as cooped up. I want to be cognizant of your time. Can we take maybe one or two more questions, or we can ask the big question about, what do you think the upside for this whole situation will be for women, for women-owned businesses, for communities?
Yeah. So I think that a couple of things. Number one, if you can get invested right now, there's just a huge upside within that in general. So it feels like the world is ending and we're never going to come out of this. And especially as business owners and, and frankly, I have a lot of clients like Emily, like they had cash on the side that was about to get invested. Like I had to put it all in my business. And so, then that's just reality of it. And you need to take care of your business first. And so there's that. But I think that, if you can get invested, I think that women are frankly smarter investors. And so the more women have more money than they ever did have. And so the more that we can get invested, the more power that we are going to have through money. But I also think that something incredible, and I only saw that because we published an article this morning on this, on resources for women business owners. And all of the businesses that have kind of come together from, Sarah, you might know, like Karen Kahn from I Fund Women and Bumble and Hello Alice and all these places that are not only just like the government that are coming together, but these businesses that have said that like they're here to help women business owners. I think it's bringing women together in a way like that we need to keep women afloat. And like, I think it's been amazing. And I know some of these women personally, and they're like startup founders themselves. And the fact that they're doing this, I think is just incredible. So I think that the resources and such that we've out there. So I am excited to just see the level that women are kind of coming together. And I think that as businesses as a whole, I hope that we all get to the other side and then we've all created these relationships that Men have been so successful because of their networks, and hopefully this helps us to all know each other even better, and that we can come out of these other sides saying, hey, like, let's support, like, let's keep this support going that we had during those tough times.
That is a great way to end our time today. I love it on a positive note. Emily, thank you so much. Just for some housekeeping, Emily is joining us 2 more times.
Yes.
So May 5th, we're talking about founders and founders and investments. And then May 7th, we're talking about angel investments today. So that'll be really interesting, and I'm very excited to continue the conversation with you, Emily. For those of you who don't already follow us on LinkedIn, please follow us on LinkedIn. We have events all the time. And if you're a female founder or an executive thinking about boards, please apply. We are a members only ecosystem. We have some members only events, and then we have some events for everyone. So we have upcoming events on the website. Check it out. Thank you so much again, Emily, for joining us. And thanks for everybody for joining us at the 4th floor. Take care.
Yes.
Bye.